The thing with these tips and techniques for April beach fishing, especially when it comes to fishing for pompano, is they're not always really obvious. And if you're not doing the right thing, you're gonna be losing fish. But when you put these tips and tricks into practice, wow, what a huge difference they make. Today we're covering a bunch of tips and strategies for beach fishing in April, which gets really exciting, especially as we have pompano that are returning to the waters. And if it's loud in the background, it's just because we're here at the beach and we've got the waves rolling in. April is not only when we catch pompano, but we get lots of other fish coming in the surf, like flounder, like these jack crevalle, like the whiting. We've caught black drum, an array of many other different species of fish, as you can see from all of these pictures. As a beach fishing guide, I have compiled years of videos and pictures from past Aprils to help you catch more fish on the beach, and keep watching to the end because I'm going to show you some pro tips like the zones for surf fishing and tides and how they play into surf fishing, the types of beaches, and how to not lose a pompano when you've got one on the line. Super important because you're gonna probably lose some fish if you don't know some of these tips. Now we're here in Northeast Florida, but these tips can be used for any beach on the East Coast at least. Just pay attention to the water temperature and you're gonna know what fish to target, what bait and rigs to use. We're gonna talk about weather, water temperatures, and how all of that plays into beach fishing for April. And if you're new to my channel, I'm releasing a video like this every month of the year to help you catch more fish from the beach. So you're gonna wanna make sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss any of them. So in April, the main fish that you're gonna be targeting are pompano, flounder, bluefish, and whiting. By now the water is warming up enough to where we should be seeing schools of pompano coming through, which is so exciting. It's what we all are waiting for, this spring pompano run. And if you didn't know, pompano are not only my favorite fish to catch, but I caught the pompano that tied a 40-year record in the state of Georgia a couple of years back. I'll have a link in the description of the video to that event that happened up in Georgia. It was super cool. Fishing for pompano from the beach can be really tricky, and pretty soon, as soon as the run starts coming through and I've got enough pompano to show you, I'm going to be releasing a video about some of the top mistakes that I see people making, of how they're not detecting the pompano and how they're not keeping them. One tip that I'll tell you is that pompano love clean waters. If you're really targeting pompano, you're going to want to find the clean water. You may take you a few beaches to find it, but you'll be able to tell just by how it looks. Today we have kind of a little bit of a dirty water line, but after that it looks like it gets pretty clean, and that's where we've been picking up these jack crevalle, because they also like that clean water. April is also when I have caught flounder in the surf, and so a beach like I'm at today, this high impact beach, this has a little bit of a lip that comes down, has a deep trough. Flounder like to hang out in those areas, especially on calm days like today. So as the water gets warmer into that 70-degree area, the flounder are going to be starting to come out of the inlets and out of the inshore and some of them coming onto the beach. So it could be a good opportunity to throw a jig in and try to catch some flounder in the surf. Nice size whiting are still abundant all the way through April. Take a look at all these pictures of whiting. These are good size, good eating size too, so you can be sure to catch some nice whiting this month. And along with those main target species, there's lots of other fish to catch, like the jack crevalle I was catching today, and like these sail cats, which are really good eating. And also in April, we start catching ladyfish. And when you're catching ladyfish, you know that summer is just around the corner, because as the water gets warmer, the ladyfish start coming into the surf. You're still going to be able to catch bluefish. Now, lately I've not been catching them on set rigs. We've actually been catching them on our casting lure. My husband was out here this morning and he caught a couple nice bluefish. I'll put the pictures right here that he caught on our casting lure, just like a 3/4 ounce spoon. Let's talk about what baits you're going to want to use for April beach fishing. Now, I was going to try to show you the sand fleas and what to look for, but they're kind of missing today. Other days they've been very abundant. There was thousands out here last week. Today they're a little bit harder to find. I did find some earlier, and that's what the fish were biting on early today. And then the bite died down, so we're trying to figure out if they're still wanting sand fleas or if they want something else. So you want to have a lot of different options of bait with you. Have some shrimp, have some mullet, have some crab, have lots of different flavors of fish gum and different things to try, because you just never know from one trip to the next, even 1 hour to the next sometimes, what these fish are going to want to eat. That's what you need to do for bait, is to have lots of options. And because there's still bluefish out there, you're just going to want to have like some mullet with you. Now today we were catching them on artificial lures, so it just depends on what they're going after from one day to the next too. But we should also be seeing some Spanish. As we see more bait fish running in the surf, the Spanish are going to be chasing them. Flounder could also be biting on artificials, so you're gonna want to have a casting lure with you, a casting rod with some lures to try, especially on a calm day like today. For flounder with a casting lure, what I've always found to be effective is like some type of a paddle tail or a curly tailed soft plastic on a jig head. So you need some weight to it, like a ½ ounce or something, to get some distance out there, and also so that it just won't, you know, get pushed in with the waves too quick. But try that and see if you can't hook up on some flounder this month. When it comes to what rigs you're going to be using in April, because of all the pompano coming in, because we still have whiting and all these other fish you're going to be catching, you're going to want to have some type of double drop or pompano rig with lots of different colors. We sell pompano rigs, and I make the float rigs with the floats right on the hooks. They've been really effective. We've been even catching the sharks on our pompano rigs. In February's video, I went over the float colors and when to use them, because there is a trick to that. You're not going to want to use them just in any conditions. So go back to February's video. I'll leave a link in the description and take a look at that. Like I mentioned, for bluefish in the surf, you're going to want to be set up for that too, so you can have a mortician rig. I've also got a video of how you can make your own mortician rig, and I'll put a link to that in the description as well. But that's got a stronger main line with lighter line on the drops, so that if they bite through your line, they're not going to bite your whole rig off. And then of course, like flounder, we already talked about, you know, using artificial rigs. Sometimes you might catch them on set rigs. I have a couple times. If you're going to be targeting sharks, make sure that you have your shark fishing license. Make sure that you're using the appropriate equipment, because if you're not set up for bigger sharks, you're going to be breaking your lines off. You're going to be breaking your poles, possibly, if they're bigger. Also, make sure you do the shark fishing course. Search FWC Sharks. You'll come up with that page that has the course. It's a really good course. It goes over shark identification and safe handling tips for sharks. We're here at the end of March, and we are just now getting to 66 degrees as the water is heating up, especially when it gets up to that 70 degree, 72 degree mark. That's kind of like the sweet spot for catching pompano. So now it's also in April. Weather starts shifting, starts getting warmer in the morning. It was in the 40s this morning when I left my house. It was like 50s. Now it's coming up to 70s and 80s. And I'm actually going to show you what I'm wearing, because this is going to keep you from getting burned. But I love these pants. Just tried these for the first time. They're by a company called Fishin. They're out of Alaska. Make some amazing women's fishing clothing, but they got all kind of cool designs. This one's called the Tropical Tarpon. Honestly, I'm not very hot. Like, I thought wearing full pants on the beach today, as it got warmer, that it would be too hot, but I actually feel just fine. So you're going to want to protect yourself from getting sunburns. You can cover up like this. Have sunscreen, drink a lot of fluids, or liquid IV, something like that. If it's really hot, I'll put the liquid IV in my water, and that really, really helps keep me hydrated, because you really don't want to have dehydration when you're out here on the beach. That would be bad. For our first pro tip today, we're going to talk about the zones of fishing on the beach and what that significance is. So when talking about the zones of fishing, you're talking about like up close, in the middle of the trough, and the sandbar regions. Let me explain a little bit deeper. So this close-up zone is an area where fish are coming in to find bait. They're finding sand fleas. They're finding little tiny bait fish to feed on. So they're going to take their time up here. They're meandering about. The zones are really important when it comes to catching pompano, especially because the pompano are typically running in somewhere near the sandbar, in relation to the sandbar. They'll either be right in front of it, on top of it, and then on the back side of the sandbar. Now that's when they're really moving. They're traveling from one place to another. They may not stop to feed if they're way out there, but that is a lot of times where you can find them in the winter time. So it's going to be really important to have a very long rod, 13 foot or longer, to be able to cast that distance to get to the fish. That's a little bit about the zones, and it's important to stagger your lines and to have them in the different zones. Once you find where the fish are, then you can move all your lines to that zone. So that is our first pro tip about zones and surf fishing. Our second pro tip is all about tides and beach fishing. You've got obviously high tide and low tide. You've got high impact beaches and low impact beaches. The tides are really important when it comes to beach fishing because fish love moving current. And so you want to be fishing leading up to high tide or low tide. When you get to that slack tide, like that half an hour before and half an hour after a high or low tide, the bite tends to shut down. The fish are not feeding as actively. Now, there's always exceptions. If you can remember it this way, high impact beach, high tide. Low impact beach, low tide. So on a high impact beach, that's like this one. We've got kind of a steep drop here. There's a deeper trough right here. If I were to walk out into this water, then I'm gonna just be up to like my chest in water, not too far. Compared to like if you've been to Daytona Beach, you're gonna walk out there, especially at high tide, you're gonna walk for maybe 100 yards and you're still only gonna be up to your knees in the water. That's a low impact beach. With a high impact beach, you've got a nice deep trough right here at the front. So as the tide is coming in, the fish tend to come in with the tide and they hang out in this trough here. And so I like to fish usually optimally a couple hours leading up to high tide, a couple hours after it. As the closer you get to low tide, and sometimes there's exceptions, like this last winter, it seemed like the outgoing down to low tide was better for a few weeks on a high impact beach. And so there may be exceptions with that. Now, low impact beaches, it's just smart. If you have casted at high tide on a low impact beach, you may cast with all of your strength and energy, getting it as far as you can, and it's still only in maybe a foot of water. So you're going to give yourself a better opportunity to get in deeper water where the fish are, to fish closer to low tide, because you can be out closer, you can cast farther into the deeper water. So that is my suggestion: high impact beaches and low impact beaches, and when you should be fishing those ideally. So hope that helps. Last pro tip, I'm going to show you how to not lose a pompano when you've got one on the line. So in short, what that means is you're not going to lose tension on the line one little bit, because the second you do, that pompano is going to pop right off. But let me turn this around. So I'm going to use this line as an example. And so if there was a pompano on the line, more than likely this is what you were going to see. If there was a pompano on the line, that is what you would see. It would be straight up and down. This line might even be more slack than that, like that. Because what happens is a pompano will hit and then they start swimming toward the shore. So your line, instead of having tension on it like the other ones, they're just going to be slack like this. So the first thing you want to do, obviously, is to tighten your drag, and then you're going to lift it straight out. You're going to start reeling, and don't lose any tension on the line at all at any time. And the pompano is going to swim sideways. It's going to swim in at angles. But the thing is to keep tension on the line, because the second that you release the tension, especially up here in the wash, that is the place that those pompano will pop off, most likely. And it gets a little rough when the waves are there. It's easy to lose tension, but you don't want to do it. Keep tension, even if you have to back up. You'll see me backing up as I'm reeling in when I have a pompano on, because I don't want to lose that fish. Here, That was a good hit. Now it's slack. Now it's slack. That was close too. This water's so nice and clean. Oh, I can see it. It's a pompano. I see it in the waves. Woo! I can see it. It's a pompano. Look at him running. All the way up the hill. Whew. Oh my Lord, look at that beauty. Look at this guy. Oh, he was barely hooked. Look at him. Man, that's a beautiful pompano. Look at that. Yes. Let's check this guy out. Man, 13 to the fork. I hope that little tip is helpful for you guys. I hope you guys can keep those pompano on the line this April. Thank you so much for watching this April beach fishing tips video. I hope that it helped you. I hope that you learn a lot and you catch some pompano this April and you're able to fill up your freezer. Tight lines, and God bless.